Thank you, G-Defy, for being a sponsor of Newsmax podcast. G-Defy shoes are the best choice for walking, running, and standing. If you spend a lot of time on your feet, these are the shoes for you. G-Defy's patented Verso shock technology aligns your posture and perfects your gait. Go to gdefy.com and use the code MAX for $30 off on orders of $130 or more.
Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Independence Day 2024. 070424, commemorating the adoption of the Declaration of Independence, declaring U.S. colonies their independence from Great Britain. 248 years ago today.
You know, if you're a high school civics student, that seems like an eternity, but for all of us, we know that's really a short amount of time on the span of human history. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. It's the strongest, most powerful, most free, most benevolent. It's not even close. And it's still an experiment, is what we have to remember. It's an experiment in self-governance. We don't know how long it's going to last, but it falls upon the people here and those duly elected representatives in the Congress to preserve and keep that republic. We're serious about that, and the weight of it would be heavy. The burden would be great if we did not have great faith that we're going to be able to do this, and we will.
Encouraging words from House Speaker Mike Johnson on Capitol Hill. The current state of affairs in Washington is likely not anything that the Founding Fathers would have ever imagined, with the two-party uniparty essentially splitting into four different factions. Democrats against Democrats, Republicans against Republicans, Democrats against the Republicans, and the power of the people pushing back against the power of big government, making for some of the most challenging and historic times in our 248-year history. This is Navy veteran Carl Higbie, host of Frontline on Newsmax.
Wow. So the Biden news cycle is moving faster than a cheetah on Adderall. Now, the story has changed yet again in like the past few hours, but Joe Biden is basically 1 foot out the door. Now, according to a report in the New York Times, that is, reportedly considering throwing in the towel. But the White House is refuting it.
Is President Biden considering stepping down?
Absolutely not. And you heard, I believe, directly from the campaign as well.
Excuse me for not believing any of you after you've lied to us for years. More than 24 Democrat lawmakers also have considered signing a letter encouraging Joe Biden to step down. But the White House is refuting all of it. And I think it's just like to buy time to figure out what the hell they're going to do. One thing, super clear. The focus of the Democrat Party today is not what's best for the country, but rather what's best for their party and what's best for their control. They are in desperate measures right now. I'm super here for it, but it also scares me a bit. When they thought Biden was a viable candidate, they were already locking up people with charges that the Supreme Court has now declared unconstitutional. They were raiding their political opponent's home at Mar-a-Lago. They tried him on a litany of kangaroo courts, violating subpoenas from Congress for the Robert Hur tapes, while jailing Republicans for doing the same thing. Arguably the least of buy-in for the people-y we have seen since the creation of the Federal Reserve. And not only did that backfire, but now their single last hope that Joe Biden would have been able to somehow beat him at the ballot box has essentially gone up in smoke. What will this cornered, scared, panicking animal, once known as the Democrat Party, do to hold on to power? Now, like I said, the question isn't what will they do next. The question is just how undemocratic or even how unconstitutional will that action be. Nothing Democrats do is by accident. They want Republicans to be having this conversation and pushing that Biden needs to go. They know the guy is done. They've known longer than the public has. They were just using him as their fall guy to do the craziest agenda items so they could do this. Toss him right out when it became politically convenient, like they're about to do. And that's happening right now, folks. Some may not have gotten the memo, though, and are still running this weird air cover for Biden, saying that we should just stop and pause for Biden's nap schedule.
If the president needs to find schedule accommodations to help to facilitate his focus on advancing our country on behalf of next generations, let's find those accommodations. But let's be clear about what's at stake.
But Senator, I mean, with all due respect, look, I love a good nap, but the presidency is a 24/7 job. I think that is alarming to people.
What the actual... Okay. I mean, they freaked out over Trump going golfing. They're like, he's taking too much time off. At his own club, by the way. You got to wonder if these people think, like, we forget what happened 24 hours ago, like Biden does every day, or do they just think we're stupid? Remember right after the debate, Barack Obama said, oh, bad debate nights happen. Trust me, I know. And then the media, like, broke with the Democratic Party for the first time ever. Now, Obama supposedly has sudden concerns. This is because, like most people in politics, they will support the party lines until it threatens their personal legacy, which it clearly does right now. You think there's any coincidence that Gavin Newsom is traveling to stand with Biden? It's a test balloon, folks, to see how he polls. They are trying to see if he looks presidential and people like it. Then they will try it with the next person, like Gretchen Whitmer, then the next person and the next person until they find somebody that just sucks less.
Thank you, Carl. The reason they are even attempting to run some sort of test pilot program is because the obvious number two person, the natural choice, the vice president, sucks even more.
The problem for the Democrat Party is really one of their own making, though, here, because if they had a competent vice president, they'd move Joe out of the way pretty simply. I think Joe would be comfortable stepping out of the way. But Kamala has failed at every task she's been given. And now the problem exists that many in the party want to go past Kamala and go right to someone like Gavin Newsom. But that's impossible by Democrat rationale, because if they do that, by their own definition, they would then be racist, sexist, and bigoted. And we all know they would have a problem with black women, which is a core of their base, if they went past Kamala. So the problems exist with the Democrat Party, don't get me wrong, but there are many lifetimes between now and November. Republicans are the ones here who have to understand Joe Biden's old. We get it. But we need to drill down on the fact his policies are bad and get back to the blocking and tackling of winning elections with people on the ground in Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Arizona and Nevada, all those states doing the things necessary to turn out the vote to win. Yeah. Because Democrats, if they hate one thing, it's losing political power. And they're going to do everything possible to win this election, regardless of who the nominee is between now and November.
That's Hogan Gidley, former national press secretary of the Trump campaign. Remember what I said earlier in the week. Donald Trump is 78 years old. He's only a few years younger than President Biden. You can't say Biden is too old. It's not the age. Look at Trump. Look at Dr. Fauci. Like him or not, he's 83 years old. Very, very sharp. Look at Judge Judy, 81. And the list goes on. It's not the age per se, but his mental health, his cognitive abilities. New York Governor Kathy Hochul and Maryland Governor Wes Moore were among the 20 Democratic governors that met with President Biden at the White House yesterday.
President Joe Biden is in it to win it. And all of us said we pledged our support to him because the stakes could not be higher.
The president has always had our backs. We're going to have his back as well.
Multiple governors telling various news agencies that the president told them he did have a medical checkup at the White House after the debate and that he was in good health except for the cold that he was suffering with. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre told the press that President Biden hadn't received any medical exams since the debate. A New York Times Siena College poll, meanwhile, showing Donald Trump extending his lead over the president to 6 points now. That's from 3 points before the debate. And a Wall Street Journal poll showing nearly 80% of Americans, 80% saying Biden is not fit to serve another term. Yesterday, I mentioned Hunter Biden, the president's son, hanging around the White House again, attending meetings with his dad and encouraging Joe, as we know, to stay in the race. Back to Carl Higbie, who spoke with Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch.
Again, can someone please explain to me, like in crayon, what the hell is Hunter Biden doing attending meetings at the White House? Hunter Biden was in the room as his father was preparing to deliver a primetime address responding to the Supreme Court's opinion on presidential immunity. Look, I get supporting your dad because Eric and Don used to be there all the time, but they were like, especially when your dad is on life support like Joe Biden is. But look, they weren't in there like helping him out with his commentary. And White House Press Secretary KJP confirmed it. Roll it.
Look, the president, as you know, is very close to his family. This is a holiday week 4th of July. He spent time with his family, as you all know and reported, at Camp David. Hunter came back with him and walked with him into that meeting, that speech prep.
The question, though, would be, is he participating in meetings with senior advisors?
What I can say is that he came back with his dad from Camp David. He walked him into the speech prep, and he was in the room. That I can tell you, he was in the room.
So close that it was 10% for the big guy. So let me get this straight. Hunter, a felon who the House of Representatives is currently accusing of, what they're accusing of him is borderline treason, and is sitting in on meetings at the White House and making decisions with senior staff? Super. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. Tom, this is beyond what our founding fathers ever framed out for anything, and she's just not giving us answers about who the hell is running the country.
Well, we know who's running the country, and it obviously isn't Joe Biden. And so the obvious answer is people close to him, his family members. Hunter is a felon, as you point out. He's facing criminal investigation from the Justice Department for perjury, at least he ought to be. Mm-hmm. And he's under indictment on federal charges related to taxes. And by all accounts, he's an unregistered foreign agent. And who knows who he's working for still. So it's one thing for him to be in there talking about a speech, but why should we be assured that that's the limit of his involvement in Joe Biden's governance? We should just presume he knows everything and is involved in the decision-making about how this country is being run. Mm-hmm. And, the question is, who's benefiting? The Chinese, the Russians, the Ukrainians in Burisma? Who knows?
Mars, who knows? But the other thing, too, is, and this story broke a few days ago, but realistically, though, Joe Biden, okay, so he refinanced his Delaware home 35 times. He borrowed more than $6 million against a home that was only worth $300,000. Is this part of this money laundering scheme? You FOIA'd more things than probably anyone else in the history of the federal government. And are we ever going to be able to find out what this money went to or what it came from?
Well, not during this administration. Maybe the next honest administration will do a full audit and serious criminal investigation of Joe Biden's finances. Mm-hmm. Remember, the investigation that could have touched on that through Hunter Biden was crimped and obstructed by this Justice Department. But going back to Hunter hanging around there, Carl, just to me, it highlights the crisis the White House is in. No normal presidency would allow Hunter to be known to be involved in staff meetings and have it leak that the staff is upset about it if things were normal. Right. To me, it shows that they are in a bunker mentality there in the White House, and the circle is tightened to close friends and family in a way that suggests that, we may be seeing the end of the Biden presidency, either by ending his campaign or, as I'm hearing, a resignation.
Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch on Newsmax. And if he says he is hearing it, people high up are definitely saying it. As we celebrate American independence today, how about a visit to the U.S.-Mexico border in the great American state of Texas? This is John Bachman.
Welcome back. According to a CBS News poll, Border Patrol agents processed approximately 84,000 migrants who illegally crossed the U.S. border just in the month of June. But that's the lowest level since President Biden took office in January of 2021. But can we really rely on these numbers? Border correspondent Jason Jones is in Austin, Texas with more. Jason?
Well, John, good afternoon. Look, for the last 4 years, Americans have watched as our nation's borders have absolutely hemorrhaged with people from over 170 different countries pouring into the nation. Now, Secretary Mayorkas is touting a 40% reduction. Now, last week he was in Tucson. Listen to what he had to say.
Across the entire southern border, Border Patrol encounters have dropped by over 40%. We are removing more non-citizens without a legal basis to stay here, nearly doubling the rate at which we are removing non-citizens directly from Border Patrol custody here in Tucson and across the southern border.
John, an absolutely false narrative that he's portraying there. Here's what's really taking place here. DHS has created a parallel immigration system. We all know it as the CBP One app, right? But what's happening is they're flying these people in over the border. So we've got 17 different airports across the nation. along with 8 different ports of entry on the border with which these people are allowed to come into. This system now causes us to look at the encounters. To anyone watching right now, if you go to the CBP website, type in national encounters, the American people can see what the real numbers are. John, we're at 2.2 million encounters in 8 months alone. We've never seen numbers like that. And yet what they're trying to do is get you to focus on Border Patrol data. Now, we used to do that. We used to do that by function. But when they changed to this new parallel immigration system, by the way, not passed by Congress, not passed by the Senate, and went to this through the Department of Homeland Security, it has changed everything. And we've got to keep them honest about what's really taking place, because the national media is picking this up and not telling the truth about the data. Back to you.
Yeah, they can cite these numbers all day long, Jason, but people dealing with illegal immigration in their communities, they know the reality. Jason Jones for us, live in Texas. Jason, thank you.
That's my buddy John Bachman, and as Jason Jones said, you can go to cbp.gov and see the numbers for yourself. Colonel Allen West, a former U.S. congressman, weighed in on the Biden administration's freedom flights as well.
You know, I live down here in Texas. I've been down to the border several times, and we're still reeling from the Jocelyn Nungare incident where 2 illegal immigrants sexually assaulted her for 2 hours and left her for dead. But you look at these numbers, and they're not accurate numbers in that they're not including the numbers of the gotaways, the people that we have no idea who they are or where they are. You talk about the 400 members that were part of the ISIS smuggling. Remember, we just recently had 8 Tajikistan individuals that were tied to ISIS who were found in New York, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles. And that follows on the heels of the 3 Syrian illegal immigrants who were trying to take a truck onto a Marine Corps base, Quantico. So not only do we have a terrorist trafficking issue on top of the human and sex trafficking issue, we have a drug trafficking issue, and they are underreporting these numbers to include not reporting to us how many people have been flown into the United States of America on these Biden freedom flights.
Former Florida Congressman Colonel Allen West, now in Texas on Newsmax. Today, President Biden and the First Lady will be hosting the annual barbecue for military families at the White House, the 4th of July barbecue. By the way, check my Twitter feed at radio_Marino in case you are not yet following me. Please do follow me. But at radio_Marino, I retweeted a video of another very odd Joe Biden moment. This happened at the D.C. Emergency Operations Center when he was speaking there a few days ago. If you haven't seen this yet, you have to see it. #creepy. All right, let's close out this 4th of July edition with some of former President Donald Trump's historic 4th of July speech from Mount Rushmore. It was actually the day before 4th of July.
And a very special hello to South Dakota. As we begin this 4th of July weekend, the First Lady and I would wish each and every one of you a very, very happy Independence Day. Thank you. Let us show our appreciation to the South Dakota Army and Air National Guard and the U.S. Air Force for inspiring us with that magnificent display of American air power. And of course, our gratitude, as always, to the legendary and very talented Blue Angels. Thank you very much. Let us also send our deepest thanks to our wonderful veterans, law enforcement, first responders, and the doctors, nurses, and scientists working tirelessly to kill the virus. They are working hard. I want to thank them very, very much. We're grateful as well to your state's congressional delegation, Senator John Thune. John, thank you very much. Senator Mike Rounds. Thank you, Mike. And Dusty Johnson, Congressman. Hi, Dusty. Thank you. And all others with us tonight from Congress, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it. There could be no better place to celebrate America's independence than beneath this magnificent, incredible, majestic mountain and monument to the greatest Americans who have ever lived. Today we pay tribute to the exceptional lives and extraordinary legacies of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and Teddy Roosevelt. I am here as your president to proclaim before the country and before the world, this monument will never be desecrated. These heroes will never be defaced. Their legacy will never, ever be destroyed. Their achievements will never be forgotten. And Mount Rushmore will stand forever as an eternal tribute to our forefathers and to our freedom. We gather tonight to herald the most important day in the history of nations, July 4th, 1776. At those words, every American heart should swell with pride. Every American family should cheer with delight, and every American patriot should be filled with joy, because each of you lives in the most magnificent country in the history of the world, and it will soon be greater than ever before. Our founders launched not only a revolution in government, but a revolution in the pursuit of justice, equality, liberty, and prosperity. No nation has done more to advance the human condition than the United States of America. And no people have done more to promote human progress than the citizens of our great nation. It was all made possible by the courage of 56 patriots who gathered in Philadelphia 244 years ago and signed the Declaration of Independence. They enshrined a divine truth that changed the world forever when they said, "All men are created equal." These immortal words set in motion the unstoppable march of freedom. Our founders boldly declared that we are all endowed with the same divine rights given us by our Creator in heaven, and that which God has given us we will allow no one ever to take away, ever.
There you go, 5 minutes and 20 seconds of Donald Trump's 41-minute Independence Day speech at Mount Rushmore, perhaps his best speech ever. By the way, the stock markets, the post office, banks, and most everything else closed today in observance of the holiday. Enjoy your holiday with family and friends, or just relaxing, doing whatever you do. Stay up on all the news today and throughout the holiday weekend on Newsmax, Newsmax Plus, and Newsmax.com. I still get people asking me about Newsmax Plus. Simply go to NewsmaxPlus.com, get signed up. You can also get a free trial. It includes all of your favorite shows and hosts with expert analysis from people like Governor Mike Huckabee, Senator Rick Santorum, Hogan Gidley, Professor Dershowitz, Judge Napolitano, and many others. There's documentaries, special programming, Trump rallies, and more. NewsmaxPlus.com. If you have a little bit of time over the weekend, also check out Newsmax.com. Did you know you can now invest in Newsmax? Enjoy the weekend with family and friends, or just relaxing, doing whatever you like to do. Be safe. Please take a moment to subscribe to the Newsmax Daily Podcast on whatever podcast platform you're listening, and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home. On the free Newsmax app, they go to Newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.